Okay, it is a wet morning in October, October 2nd, 2012. And once again, just documenting more progress here with my raised bed garden. And so this is what our winter greens look like now. They've not been in the ground very long at all, really. And these were the ones that Jamie Griffin's father told me I should just scratch the ground a little bit and put the turnip green seed in there. And I did. I started out thinking this was kale, had the wrong kind of seed. So I've got turnip greens on both ends of my garden, and they're outstanding good. They're just fantastic. There's the shard over there that's light to yellow in the middle. Here we have some broccoli, I think my wife is growing, and that is this little stuff down here is spinach in the foreground, so it's coming up. And I think that's a piece of kale right there. Nikki planted that, but so this is what you end up with right quick. And I've been eating for weeks now out of this. Just take a pair of kitchen scissors and come out here and I clip off the leaves. For breakfast I just had an outstanding chicken sandwich on whole wheat with a big mess of greens piled on it, and they're just as good as lettuce. Matter of fact, I think they're just outstanding on sandwiches. So a lot of vitamin content here, and you can go on Wikipedia and see what turnip greens have. Of course, the asparagus is still getting established. We planted that back in, I'm guessing, May, or might have been April. And so it is just really going well. I'm not going to do anything at all with it until next year. They always say you're supposed to let it establish itself for a year. Dug my first sweet potato the other day, and then went back and I just wanted to see, what you're supposed to do. And what I read on, I guess, a Purdue University website was that you're supposed to let the sweet potatoes go until it frosts. And when you have your first big heavy frost, you pull up the vines and you start digging them out of the ground. I pulled up a beautiful sweet potato and I posted that on my YouTube site as well. So this is the little ground garden here. So soon should have a bunch of sweet potatoes. The sweet potato I pulled out was just as beautiful orange as can be. And I read some guidelines for how you're supposed to cure those. I went in the house and immediately washed it off. They say you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let them cure in a sort of a room with some, medium temperature and humidity for a few weeks, and then put them in a dry place. And the sugars inside there kind of mature and become better. There's my kale. Some of the kale plants we bought just to put in the ground. And Nikki likes collards, so we those were just maybe put in last week or week before last. So we're going to see how our little winter garden grows. And it looks like Nikki's maybe got some garden soil there. She's planning on putting these, I think she's bought some grape vines over here, some muscadine grapes. She loves the juice out of muscadines. And so we're going to plant those. I think she had originally planned maybe to put them over there beside the hammock. I think now maybe she'd like to string up something on the other side of the raised bed garden over there, kind of where that curve is, where that circle is. So pretty soon we may be experimenting with some grapes here on Mineral Springs Mountain. The funny thing is we got some tomatoes coming up. I pulled all the tomatoes up, and I guess these are just little volunteers. I see a bunch of them in there in places. So I'm thinking about maybe getting pots and taking those tomatoes, just digging them up and taking them and putting them inside for the winter. So I'm going to have to do that here in the next couple weeks. I see probably 6 or 8 tomatoes just growing up, coming up out of the soil where I'd pulled the tomatoes up, where we had a tower of tomatoes in there. So raised bed has been really worth doing. It cost me probably $1,000 to make this raised bed here out of rocks, and that's everything I did with it. Putting down the gravel, digging it all up to start with, putting the gravel up on the ground, putting some thick layers of felt there on the ground to keep the grass from growing up through it, connecting all the blocks together. Bought all that from Lowe's. I filled the bottom of it up with topsoil that I bought locally, and then I put a mixture of topsoil and Miracle-Gro soil on top. And I had just a bunch of peppers and cantaloupes and tomatoes and cucumbers and all sorts of things this past summer, and now going into the winter, and hopefully have these greens to eat all winter long. So raised bed gardening is worth it, folks. It's not very much work either. I've done very little work once I got this thing put together. Not hard to weed, almost no weeds at all. And Very easy on the back. You know, it's up a good 16, you know, close to 16 inches off the ground, so you don't have to bend over so much to work it. And boy, tell you what, plants love it. So that is some thick greens. Hope this helps if you're aspiring to do a raised bed garden.